Keeping up with content creation for retail and social media, product detail pages, email campaigns, and print is a never-ending process. Brands need to stay ahead, but managing content across platforms is overwhelming. That's exactly what we're talking about in today's episode, and it's exactly why It's Rapid exists. Big brands like Pepsi, Mondelez, and Instacart use It's Rapid to automate their creative workflows, eliminating manual bottlenecks and wasted time while producing high-quality content at scale faster than ever before. With It's Rapid, you can scale banner creation across multiple retail and social media networks, create above and below the fold images, videos, and copy for Amazon, Walmart, and other channels, build optimized content for email marketing campaigns, and produce sell sheets, catalogs, and print formats for trade shows and in-store promotions. If today's conversation gets you thinking about how much effort goes into content production, it's time to rethink your approach. Visit itsrapid.ai to learn how top brands are scaling smarter and faster using our all-in-one content creation solution. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Shelf with Dave Feinlieb. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. We publish new episodes every Tuesday morning, so be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Dave Feinlieb.
Hello, and welcome back to Beyond the Shelf. Today, we're tackling two of my favorite topics, candy and commerce. For those of you who don't know, the candy industry is valued at nearly $300 billion worldwide, with chocolate accounting for nearly half of that. Those are pretty sweet figures, if you ask me. And here to discuss the delicious details surrounding this is Director of Digital Commerce for Russell Stover Chocolates, Celia Van Wickel. Celia, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
It's very sunny here in the Atlanta area. It'll be 81 degrees today, so very nice.
Warming up. So that's great to hear. Thanks for taking some time out to chat with me. I thought I'd start off with Valentine's Day. Now, we're a couple months removed from Valentine's Day, but obviously that's a big deal in confectionery. How do you think about those kinds of tentpole opportunities? And then I want to take a step back and go back to how you got to Russell Stover.
So Russell Stover is a very seasonal business. So everything that we do, it really revolves around the key seasons. Valentine's Day actually is one of our largest seasons that we participate in. We have the iconic red heart that most people get for Valentine's Day. So that is a very big focus in terms of where we align. As I came into the company about a year ago, the goal has really been to try to unify from a marketing and a wholesale sales perspective, how we align our budgets to show up in the retail media space. And so making sure that we have as much as possible interconnected campaigns across retailers. So we're saying the same message. We're looking consistent from a brand perspective, but also working our budgets accordingly between the sales and marketing teams here at Russell Stover to make sure that we're making the right investments in where we want to grow.
Now, there's a lot to unpack there. If you would talk us through first the retailer part. You mentioned a number of different channels that you want to be present on. And then the other part I thought was really interesting is kind of this importance of the consistency of message. Why might be obvious, I guess, from your seat, but why is that so important to have that consistent message?
Yeah, so we actually view retail media as a great way to also not only help us drive immediate sales, but also build, our brand. And so if we have disparate messages across the board, we're not really building the brand and the brand of presence across the retailers that we participate with. And so it is very important for us to have a consistent message. Also, right, we have certain things we want to feature to drive sales. So we might have a hero product, like for Christmas, we had some new innovation products that we wanted to highlight. And so we want to make sure that we're consistently driving the right priorities across our retailers. Some retailers, do need some customization just based on the what we sell to them.
Right.
But in most cases, we're trying to keep it to the key main message that we want to have as a brand.
Makes total sense. Now, would you take us back to the beginning? How did you first get involved in this space?
Yeah. So I guess one of my first jobs out of college was a media buyer for TV. So that helps me ground my marketing and media kind of understanding. And that involved into online advertising. I was actually measuring online ad effectiveness way back in the day when digital advertising was practically brand new. I'm probably aging myself there quite a bit. And then kind of divulging into brand side, going from agency to brand side opportunities where I started leading insights and trends to showcase where we're evolving in the space. At one company, I was leading something called relevant engagement. So how do we relevantly engage with people in the digitally space so it's not like too creepy or scary? To then actually working and supporting insights and functions for on Amazon business. So when I worked at Mattel, and that was the first time I really got to focus on a heavy online only category and really helping support the Amazon team, which then got me into Coca-Cola, where I really had the foundation built there where we were leading in the CPG space, trying new things and trying to really grow with the market, even pre-pandemic. And kind of really built my inherent passion and expertise while working at that company. And that's led me to different things, whether data or e-commerce roles, with that foundation that I've built from early on from marketing, media, and digital commerce.
What a great combination, this marketing, media, and digital commerce. When you think about analytics and then you think about ad creative, they're almost two different sides of the brain. How do you pull those together and have them produce the best creative and the best connection with the shopper?
Yeah, so my background does have a lot of data. I used to do actually a lot of ad testing research and way back in the day, again, online ad effectiveness. I also did that at other companies where I worked with marketing department to understand how we best optimize our creative. Even at Coca-Cola, I did some research on how we understand how do you communicate online versus in store. And so those things really built my knowledge around some best practices and principles. Another thing is I also studied neuroscience. So I was doing some neuroscience testing where you truly understand basically eye tracking and cognitive capabilities. And there's some principles when you look at the neuroscience space that apply to creative. So while I would measure if there was an improved effect based on the different research I would do, I also need to understand what impact that would have to the creative. So as of today, as I work on, my team does help a lot with the retail media creative that we produce today. Going back and utilizing tools to help us understand the key principles, what will drive attention and engagement for the creative audience.
So you've kind of built on the analytics background. You had the ad and the agency part of things. And tell us what it's like working at Russell Stover. It's such an iconic brand.
Yeah, it's been really great. Russell Stover is part of the Linton Springley group, but we operate as our own brand. And so we are a very, I would say, nimble and scrappy brand, but we're really trying to accelerate ourselves in the digital space. So as I said earlier, I have been at the company about a year. And, in that year, my focus has really been aligning the teams, both again across the organization, to make sure we're right sizing our digital investments and right sizing the activities we do to grow our business. So within that, I focus on digital shelf, the creative process of digital shelf, retail media, Amazon business, and our D2C website.
So you're busy.
Yes, I have a lot of different scopes within that digital commerce space.
I love it. And when you think about this planning process and aligning the teams, how do you go about planning for the year and kind of communicating across the different groups that you work with?
So obviously we are trying to align to our key planning milestones that we have as a company.
Yeah.
So there's certain times a year where we evaluate our plans to figure out what we're going to do for the following year. And so actually, this, again, having only been at the company a year, this year we are trying to get ahead of it, starting, again, a task force team to really start planning and integrating how we're going to grow in the digital space, particularly predominantly within our retailer customer base.
We talked a little about creative as part of that overall strategy. You mentioned some of the important aspects of creative, but how do you think about creative? I know you like to really think about the designs and that shopper connection. What goes into sort of best in class creative?
I think if anyone who's done creative for digital commerce, it really is actually about focusing on the product. Product focused has always been a key learning I've seen repeated over and over again in any creative. So video is doing really well right now if you want more like real people and lifestyles and things like that. But if you're really just trying to communicate simply on a web page, it really has been product focused. And so that's kind of where I gear towards the retail media creative. Obviously, again, trying to figure out how we focus on that creative while also telling a brand story.
And when you say product focus, that literally means showing the product in the ads, the banners, the other formats that you're working on.
Yes, we try to showcase the product, make people aware from the packaging that they have as they go, integrate this with their search process. Again, obviously, we're doing offline and online advertising, so it's also about bringing that awareness. We also try to showcase what's inside the box or inside the chocolate as much as we can, just to kind of give some appetite appeal to the creative. But it really is best practice for digital definitely is product focus. Something I've learned from neuroscience, right, is there's a central tendency to always go to the eye first in the center, and then your eye will kind of go beyond that depending what other elements draw your eye and where you pay your attention to. So again, what's the thing you want to focus on that's in the center of attention?
I love it. And one thing I learned from a creative director that we worked with is exactly what you said, which is where is the eye's attention going to go in the banner and in the creative? Because it's easy to have almost too much going on in creative, and you want to think about where you're gonna focus. So it's such a great point. The other thing you mentioned was sort of all these different retailers. How did those guidelines play alongside the Russell Stover brand guidelines and kind of getting those to work together?
It is a challenge in the retail media creative space for sure. Right? They all have their different criteria. So there have been times when I receive something from a brand team and it has this nice font and look of a headline, but when I resize it down or use certain criteria from different retailers, that nice little element might have to go because I don't have the space, nor do we have the criteria to be able to do that. So it's been really challenging from an iteration perspective to keep those brand guidelines.
That makes total sense. We're doing some work with you at It's Rapid on all these different retail media networks. What have been some of our learnings in that area, or some of the takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of history. We actually started engaging with It's Rapid to help with sponsored video ads, and we still use It's Rapid for that as well. But we were having a challenge with an agency that we use for other digital content in understanding the iterations we need to do for the retail media space. So we opened up, Dave, to your team to pilot with us to see how we could better optimize the creative with different retailer media templates. And it has been a much more streamlined process for us to be able to get to the creative elements we need to meet the different retailer criteria.
Now, I probably should sample more of the product more often so that I can really incorporate that into the creative process. I will say the heart box is, like I mentioned earlier, just so iconic, and such a great physical product to be able to work with and then incorporate into the assets. So really an exciting product line to be able to work with. When you go about briefing this creative and you think of the brand teams and then the It's Rapid teams, how does that process work?
Yeah, so we actually have a creative briefing process that we kick off with the marketing and creative teams. A lot of that is about our total digital commerce content strategy. But in there, we also try to prioritize what are the key messages and priorities, right, from that we can leverage within the retail media creative as well. And so we do this months before because everything we need produced needs to be done up to 6 months prior to even a season.
And why is that? Is that sort of just part of the planning process, or that's the lead time in the market?
So a lot of it is the lead time in the market. Again, digital content comes first, then retail media has a little bit more flexibility, but there is certain timelines we have to hit for creative approval, or the retailers have edits to certain creative. So we do that. But when I came aboard, we didn't really have a joint meeting between creative and marketing, and so we made sure that we started having those discussions so we can align on the right objectives for everything that we create.
Across Russell Stover, you have certain products that you're going to feature, let's say, over and over. You have a portfolio of products. How does that work when you're thinking about whether it's retail media or the digital shelf, this individual product versus the portfolio?
Yeah. I think, again, it depends on what role or goal is the creative that we're trying to drive. So as you mentioned, for Valentine's Day, the red heart is pretty iconic. We have it in different shapes, sizes. So that kind of works as its own hero image in products. So we don't really obviously there's certain ad formats where we can add other products that or landing pages. But in that case, we kind of work by itself. But like when we have a Christmas holiday, we have a different assortment of various gift boxes that we have for the holidays. And so we might want to show more, in that case, potentially a portfolio play, depending on the goals and objectives that we have.
So to kind of think about rules for the road for our listeners, it's maybe to say, start with the objective in mind, then work your way back to the channels and then think about the creative. Or have I got those flipped? Do you think about them in a different order?
Yeah, we definitely think about the objective first, what we're trying to communicate, and then trying to understand, does that work in the retail media space, right? Especially on-site ads versus off-site ads. Would that message or communication come through accurately? Sometimes we have promotions that we might want to highlight instead, right? So it just depends on how we align that message to make sure it's coming through, but also adhering to what we want to do to convert with the retailer.
Now, one more question for you about It's Rapid. At It's Rapid, we try and move relatively quickly, as the name suggests. What are some ways you're thinking about working with the platform and kind of our partnership going forward?
Yeah. So again, we had discovered the retail media use case that was not an original intent of using it. It's Rapid, right? We are continuing to look at sponsored videos and how dynamic do we want those videos to be. I think over time, we are starting to ramp up enhanced content as a team. Or again, when I came on board, we've been building our digital maturity, and it's something that we're evaluating. Where do we want to proceed with those in the future?
Got it. So thinking about the content mix as you kind of go forward, video, enhanced content, these are really great. Now, Celia, you do a ton of speaking engagements, you cover topics like AI, e-commerce, and food and bev. It's hard to think about predictions with the space moving as fast as it is, but what's on your mind when it comes to AI?
Yep. So I think, a lot of people who follow the industry are very excited for, generative AI, agentic AI. I do believe that what we're seeing with AI, with, Amazon just came out with a bunch of different announcements in the last 1 to 2 weeks. It is changing inherently shopping. So I've always had, are we doing, we've all been kind of used to, I guess, some traditional horizontal, vertical tile shopping that Amazon kind of set the stage for everybody, white background, simple shopping.
Yeah.
AI right now is starting with more of a conversational question and answer element in terms of how you navigate. And yes, new areas that you're going to show up and understand how do you optimize your content to show up in more conversational type of statements. This is something that came up with when people thought video search, voice search, was actually going to grow. It's the same principles. But I also believe what it does is because it brings so much large pieces of data, it brings imagery together, optimization of so many different elements, not just text. It can really change what TikTok has been trying to do, which is called an infinite loop. So what it does is it shows that you bring discovery with the product, with the purchase process and the fulfillment all together in one bucket. And so what I do think is that discovery piece, which has been so hard for traditional retailers, including Amazon, to bring into the entire path to purchase, I do think it can collapse that, right? It can kind of bring different elements depending on the search together. That's not just answering a question or a conversation. It will bring imagery and discoverability into that path. And that's really where that infinite loop is and where the core is, I think, to the future of e-commerce. And so I think instead of us going to this horizontal white background type of shopping, it's going to be a very integrated flow of shopping. TikTok is trying to do that with TikTok shops. But I think you'll just feel like you're kind of immersed into a discovery platform.
That's such a great insight. And tell us a little more, if you would, about the discovery process. That's been hard and sort of difficult to do because these platforms aren't geared toward that, or because they're more just search oriented for products I'm already in the market for.
Yeah. I mean, so there's been lots of companies trying to do this, right? Walmart has tried live streaming and others.
Yeah.
And so those are like early stages. I think what I'm kind of want to bring forward is that those things are still relevant. It's how people find it, how people bring it into their path to purchase, and how they discover it, that I think needs to will be changing in the future. Some of these things were a little early for the US market.
Yeah.
We're seeing maybe, there's a 5 to 10 year delay on something starting, it fails, it comes back again, and it reiterates. So I think we're starting to see this reiteration, starting with, again, the generative AI powered search, but then other kind of AI enhanced automation, shopping process, and discoverability. So again, we know that video media works very effectively for driving awareness on the digital shelf, on the search results page. And so that's a new format. A lot of retailers are adopting video because it engages, because people attracts attention. And so how do you bring video and that attention driving kind of activities more forefront to make it more of a seamless shopping experience?
This is great. I'm excited for the future with all these new shopping capabilities, and kind of this infinite loop is a great concept. So we may have found the title for our podcast right there with that one. I've got a few fun questions for you with our rapid rundown here to wrap things up. These are mostly chocolate related, I've got to warn you, and I do not know the answer to all of them. But our producer will put them in the show notes so that we have them. The first one is, and feel free to guess, I may toss in some guesses here too, which ancient civilization is credited with the first use of cacao beans?
The Mayans or the Aztecs?
That's what I was going to guess. I'm not sure if it's Mayans or Aztecs, but we'll find out.
They go interchangeably. I don't know.
Exactly.
My husband would know. He's a big history buff, but he's not here.
We'll check. Which country consumes the most chocolate per capita?
It's a smaller country than you would think. I think is it Germany?
Could be.
I actually have seen the stat. I don't know why I don't remember, but it's a smaller country than you would believe it to be, because again, it's per capita. So that's the key there.
Got it. This is a great one. Which famous chocolatier invented milk chocolate by adding condensed milk in 1875?
Which chocolatier?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I don't know the answer to that one, but we'll check with the producers.
Yeah.
And
I work for chocolate, but I don't.
Right. That's a history one. And which chocolate bar was the first to be mass produced and sold worldwide?
I'm just going to say the Hershey bar, but I don't think.
Right. That was going to be my guess. Now, I want to throw in a Russell Stover question here for a rapid rundown. Which birthday did Russell Stover recently celebrate?
In 2023, we had our 100th birthday, so we're just rounding our 102nd birthday right now.
Incredible.
Yep.
And the great thing about this brand, I've got to say, is it is a classic brand, and yet it's so great to see how you're bringing the package to life. The products, they're so relevant. You just cannot go wrong with Russell Stover. So wonderful to be able to work with you, the team at Russell Stover, and a great product lineup. So to tie things off here, when you do get some time away from work, if you get some time away from work, how do you like to spend that time? What are your hobbies?
So I like to go for long walks. I have this river walk by where I live, and I kind of like to decompress there. I am an industry junkie, so I do spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and reading LinkedIn. it is fun for me, ironically. And then, I like going to brunch and, watching Netflix on occasion. But yeah, I mean, very simple things that I'm interested in. So.
Those are great. And it's just so important to be able to unwind and decompress these days. So I hear you on that. I tend to listen to podcasts as well when I'm trying to decompress. And there's some great ones out there. So thank you for joining us on Beyond the Shelf today. What is the best way for our listeners to reach you online if they'd like to do that?
Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want to say hello. I'm fairly responsive on there. I'm probably the only Celia Van Wickel that you might find, so it should be easy to reach me.
Celia Van Wickel with Russell Stover Chocolates. Thank you for the partnership. We really appreciate it. And for all the insights, a wonderful team to work with. And we hope you've enjoyed the show today on Beyond the Shelf. Celia, come back and join us soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave.
That's it for this week's episode of Beyond the Shelf. If you enjoy the show, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It really helps us grow. And feel free to share us with your colleagues so they too can hear weekly perspectives from the brightest minds in e-commerce. You can also check us out on LinkedIn, where we post clips from each episode, share Dave's takes on breaking industry news, and much more. Beyond the Shelf is a production of It's Rapid. Our host is Dave Feinlieb, and our producers are Sean Levy-Ashvili and Jake Musiker. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.